on this episode of The Africa Whisperer.
Being born from a mom who is a woman who's like domestic worker and today employs over 48 people on a full-time basis, building a global and phenomenal brand. Who else do I want as a motivational role model?
Hey, I'm Kasumba, and this is our journey across Africa, navigating the intricate landscapes of business, culture, and global influence from the African perspective. Dr. David Tlale, I'm so excited to be able to have you on the podcast. I thought of a million ways that I could introduce you. This season is about people who are visionaries and how they consistently revision, rebuild, redream, they reimagine, and they see things that other people don't. So I'm going to try not be emotional throughout this because I've known you for a very long time. It's been a privilege and a blessing. And I'm actually wearing this color instead of black because when I first started working on radio, I was so awkward and I had to present an award at the South African Music Awards at the Summers. And you literally made me a dress a skirt in this color with black. So I was like, this is me and David's connection moment. So
look at you, Lee. You have to pull out all the archives, isn't it?
Honestly, what means a lot to me about that is that, especially then, and I think even now, many designers, they don't almost take a chance on somebody who's not known or take a chance on somebody who's awkward looking. But the only thing I've ever received from you was always reaffirming me as a person, reaffirming my vision, reaffirming where I was going, reaffirming my roots. So you have a very dear place in my heart. And I know that many people who've had an interaction with you or who have the privilege of calling you their friend will say exactly the same thing. David is always the person who's looking out for everybody. So it is a privilege to have you, Dr. David Tlale, because, you now have an honorary doctorate. Let me respect myself. Welcome to the Africa Whisperer.
Yes, you're too kind. Thank you.
Now, David, let's take things back to you growing up in Vosloorus in South Africa, right? And obviously, at the time that you were growing up is when South Africa had just, and especially at the time when fashion was really influencing you, was when South Africa had just come out of apartheid, It was almost in that bridge. Is Mandela going to be released? Is he not going to be released? What's happening? What isn't happening? And I kind of wonder, living like that and just being one of the people who's coming out and being like, wow, we can do this thing. How did that, where was your point of reference for fashion and your point of reference for the possibility of being a global brand? Because I know you had it in your mind for a very long time.
First of all, let me just start from the beginning. I'm really humbled that you chose to interview me on this wonderful platform, and congratulations to you for your journey. That has been super amazing, and now that we're here, it's a really beautiful moment. And coming back to your question is that I think when I was in my first year of fashion, which is 1994, that was literally our year of democracy as a country, full on getting into democracy. I was in my first year of fashion. And for me, what was going on in my mind is that, yes, we have a clothing and textile industry, but do we have a fashion industry? We did not have a fashion industry that was kind of lucrative. The only thing we had, like most parts of us in the continent, that everybody just makes clothes. You have that tailor, or you have that dressmaker, you have that mama that always pulls together a look for you. But the very interesting time was we had really beautiful, amazing designers and brands like your Stone Sherry, Loction Culture, Magents. The list goes on. Aboso Nwabile Ndamase, Sister Bucks, and Julian and the Boys going on at that time, and coming into this space as a young man then. Getting into the space of okay, I want to find out more. I want to acquire more knowledge about this industry, was as a point of saying, I want to be more than just what the other people are already doing. I want to become like the international brands that are currently look up to and been looking up to over the years. And because I always I always said, why don't we have a global luxury brand that is proudly made in South Africa or in Africa? And that was one of my drives because, I mean, before when going to fashion school, I was studying to be an auditor. I could be like a fantastic auditor by now, hopefully,
Yeah.
having like an accounting firm or something. But there was this calling that I've always just like had, or even this yearning to want to know more in fashion. And looking back today, I still bless that day when I made that decision to say, I want to be a fashion designer.
Yeah, I love that. And I think we all blessed that day, honestly speaking, because you've really been one of the, and you are one of the key people in terms of changing the tapestry and the narrative about, around African fashion, what it is, around luxury and about consistency. I still want to tap into your childhood because if I'm not mistaken, there was four siblings. You grew up in Vosloorus with your mom and your
Yeah.
four siblings. What was that
Mhm.
upbringing kind of like? You know, which sibling were you? Were you the favorite? Were you the naughty one, the mischievous one? Were you the sweet one? You know, which one were you that your siblings are not going to come and say, David, David, uyamaka. That's me trying.
um, I was one of those siblings that were kind of like really spoiled by my mom for a long time until my
Yeah.
younger brother was born. But I was kind of like the one that was like always enslaved by my sisters, who was always doing the chores, cleaning, doing the garden, cleaning the yard completely and everything else. I'm the one who has to like prepare the wood for the fire and make sure that I bring the coal inside. I was that guy that
Wow.
was always just like
Slave
um,
labor.
just slave labor and everybody just like wanting everything from me. And then the sad part was like, yes, when my mom was home, I was the loved one. But when she went to work, I was abused by my sisters like through and through.
Hey.
It was just like, and I was like, I'm gonna get you one day. I'm gonna get you. It's one day. One day is one day. And the other day, I remember this very well. I was very mad at my sisters. I took like one of my sister's sandals because they like literally brutalized me and abused. I like took one of her favorite sandals, cut them, and because I knew that she loved them. Came back, my mom found out that I did that. Did I get a spank or did I get a spanking? That was like crazy, but it was
Oh my
all out of
gosh.
love. And growing up in Vosloorus with my sister's influence and later on with my younger brother, I was like for a very longest of time I was the only boy in the house. Got the influences from all my mom, my sisters, cleaning, cooking, neatness, and making sure that I'm able to take care of myself. And then it turned out that like when I got into high school, when I was able to like read cooking recipes and everything else, I was starting to be like the better cooking one because I was like very creative in the kitchen. And my mom was like, what is happening with you? Why are you cooking? I'm like, well, I just enjoy cooking. And then
Yeah.
she started enjoying my cooking, and then over time I was like, I love your cooking, but my God, my kitchen becomes a mess when you are cooking because everything is
Oh
everywhere,
my gosh.
and you like take out all the ingredients and everything else. But it was really nice, and I enjoyed that upbringing because it helped me to become the person that I am today. It helped me to become the man that I am today. I understand and respect the human side or aspect of who I am and other people. I value that, and over time, I mean, bless my mom's soul. After her passing, I started seeing. I used to see a lot of my mom in me, but now it's just like it's on steroids. It's like in terms of
Wow.
cleanliness, in terms of neatness, in terms of how things needs to be done, how you need to take care of your house and everything. I see that in like those influences coming majorly, not only in my house but also in my atelier when I want everything to be clean, neat, and making sure that it's properly done. But the one thing that is really really amazing that I will forever be grateful, being raised in Vosloorus and by this wonderful woman, is her teaching me about God and knowing who God is
Yes.
in my life.
Yes.
And today
Yes.
I am that man that I believe my mom wanted me to be because of those teachings. And when I look at my journey, and like some of the people, they ask me, how have you sustained, how have you survived? I don't think I would have survived if it was not of God's grace, my mom's teaching,
Amen.
and understanding what, not even God's role, the importance of understanding who God is in our lives. I don't think if I did not have that foundation and being very rooted in the Word of God and in the journey of wanting and yearning to know who God is in our lives, I don't think I'd still be standing today. Because when chips are down, when life hits you so hard, what happens? What do you do? In the past, I used to like call my mama, this is what's going on. She's like, come, let's pray. Come, let's
I
pray.
love
Today, I
that.
missed that call.
I
Come,
love
let's
that.
pray. Come, let's pray. Nothing beats God. God can take you can take you through this situation. And favorite scripture be like, um, when Hezekiah saw the dry bones, he'd be like, do you believe these dry bones can live again? God,
Can
like,
live
yeah,
again.
they can come alive again. That was my mom's line. If God was able
I
to
love
make
it.
those bones come alive again and join and live again, so God can be able to take you through this situation. So I'm forever grateful of that upbringing. I'm forever grateful of the childhood teachings of you choose whether you go to church or you choose lunch. So you had to, those were the struggles. You had to choose like, if I stay away from Sunday school and church, clearly I'm not having Sunday lunch. And growing up back home, Sunday lunch was one of the biggest meals that you could have in a week. So and then I'm grateful of those sacrifices. But with time, I then became born again, accepted Christ, and just like live according to what I believe, not only what my mom was teaching me, but what I was discovering who God is in my life and in my journey. And I believe being so active at church, being so active within my community and everything else had a direct impact in who I am today.
I love that. And David, the thing about you is that exactly who you say you are and exactly what you say about your faith is exactly the person that you are. Because I remember we went on a very long trip, literally to the other side of the world. I think we were like stuck at some airport or something like that, and everything. And I just remember that each time that we were in stops or in situations or waiting, are we coming, before we saw the northern lights, all of that, every single time you were always encouraging me, like you literally, like your walk with God, it's not like you and God, it's like almost like one, and you're very centered in that. And for me, I think what I loved about that, and perhaps the reason why I'm so drawn to you, is that I also have like a strong faith, and I love to see people who are doing so well, and they're like,
Mhm.
look, this is all God, and they really mean it. It's not just when they're like accepting an award, and I'm not saying in a judgmental way, but you truly are. Your faith really is like you exude it. It's like
No,
your faith like exudes everything that you do.
thank you. Thank you.
And also, yeah, there's also like another part. I know Ricky Rick was somebody who you were close to, and Ricky had
Yeah.
walked in at least one of your fashion shows. And
Yeah.
and I remember the one time in an interview, not with me, somebody else, Ricky, was saying about how, Koka, see, the uncles knew how to dress, they were wearing their right shoes, everything was like on point, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
Koka, see, for people not from South Africa, everybody in South Africa is going to be slating my accent anyhow. For people not from South Africa, that's like from like the townships, from like the hoods. Yeah, I'm embarrassing myself. The township, from like the hood. Like for you, like in Vosloorus, what was the flavor like? What is the township flavor like in terms of the way people were dressing? And also like now getting inspiration from like the township and from Kokasi, because everybody's always thinking like, oh, we need to get something from like over there, But you always like
No.
your inspiration is very rooted while it's still luxury. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, like, growing up was like really beautiful. I think we coming growing up in the townships, we like had a wonderful upbringing. So one of my uncles, who was kind of like a technician in his own right, and he was fixing people's radios and TVs and whatever. But he was like this man that would wake up every morning, get dressed in a three-piece suit, a tie, a distressed leather bag with his tools and
I
everything,
love it.
and a hat. And I loved walking around with him. Imagine having a direct influence from this man on a daily basis until he passed away. And I was like, actually, I think this fashion thing, actually, I got it literally from him because he was a very well-dressed man in the entire family. And this is from my father's side. And growing up Kokasi, it has been like really amazing because we would have, now they call it the swankas, where every Sunday,
Yeah.
Saturday, Sunday, the swankas would be parading in the streets. It was a huge movement. It was a culture, and everybody. I mean, like in Congo, I call it they call it sapology, but in our hoods we called it the swankas, and you'd see how these men and some women would make an effort of putting themselves together, looking good to the T. It didn't matter if they slept on the floor or anything else, but if it was the day of the swankas and coming and parading in the streets, you'd swear that these people are coming from like very wealthy families, and their fashion sense was like on point. And then you had the beautiful pansulas, and which we there was one beautiful skirt. We called it ipenduga. It's like it's another version of the Scottish skirt kilt, and the women and men used to wear that kilt, and then it was fused with the ducks of London, very tiny little checks kind of thing. You'd find gentlemen wearing a ducks of London check, a pants, shirt, a jacket, and a matching bag, and then the cap. And then there was in the 80s when there was a huge movement of the punk era where it was just like I love you t-shirts right front to back. In that yellow that you're wearing, you'd have love in front, you at the back. And then I remember when you were like trying to hit on someone, you'd be like, I love, and then turn around you, and then you like have to understand
I
actually
love that.
I was talking to
I was talking to you.
So, and then there was the most beautiful thing because I was raised in a church environment. The biggest thing was the Sunday best dress up. When we went to church, my mom has always made sure that we all look the part. And then you come to church with you see these ladies with hats that you don't even know how is someone behind you supposed to see the preacher or even anything else happening, and they'll be dressed to the nines. You'll be like so Sunday best played a major role in our lives. And then there was Christmas, and growing up there was always brand new clothing for Christmas. Yeah, for Christmas for all the children, and then would go for lunch, go to church, go for lunch, and then put on your Christmas clothing. You walk around from house to house. You get Christmas gifts or sweets or whatever it is, and those were the moments which are really really beautiful. But I do want to say that growing up, Ekasi has like literally had an amazing impact on me. Not only that, you look at the mamas. I mean, all our neighbors in our streets or in our communities, where they were our moms, and you see how they got dressed when they're going to get that bus or in that taxi. They dressed to the nines.
They were
and by
ready. They were ready. There was no mistake.
it don't matter what happened, whether they work as a domestic worker or they work at a bus terminal cleaning the buses, including my mom. My mom was a pure domestic worker, and later on she worked at the bus terminal cleaning the buses and everything else. And some people working like in big factories like Unilever and whatever. But you see these ladies, how they put themselves together, going into a bus. It's like a fashion show of note. But that was quality of life, and also just saying, you know what, we may have the little that we have, but we are going to look the best on a daily basis.
With a lot of Africans, we can relate to Christmas being the day that you're getting new clothes. Your Christmas clothes are
New
coming, your
clothes.
Easter clothes,
Exactly.
new clothes, new clothes. And also just talking about the township and the township economy, we've spoken about the creativity in the township, but I know that you had a fashion show in the Val and you took it
Yeah.
back. And this wasn't like when you were in the beginning. It was when you were like the David Tlale, as in the House of David Tlale. Hey, I like that. You did what many people didn't do, and you went back and did a fashion show, in the Val. For you, why was that important?
It is very important for me. Like Lee, my journey has always been about. I come from the dusty streets of Vosloorus, and then now I need to inspire the very young people that are still growing up in the township to say there's nothing wrong in being born in the township. There's nothing wrong in being born in the hood or in rural areas. There's nothing wrong. The only thing that really matters is the choices that you make and where those choices are able to take you. And for me, when I did that, the show was called um, um, New York to Vosloorus or Vosloorus to New York, was like,
I love that.
let's bring it back from the streets of Manhattan to Johannesburg. The very same collection we showcase in Manhattan, and tell the people and tell our story to say, in this backyard where I started my business, where I was raised in these streets, these clothes have touched the grounds of the greatest in the world. And you, as young people, you have a bigger responsibility to make sure that you are able to touch the very same grounds and to inspire the creative sector. And when we did that, we refused to only employ professional models and stuff like that. We did the entire casting in Vosloorus. We had over 700 people to come for casting because they wanted to be models, bringing back the township economy. The hair and makeup artists that we worked with are from the township. The suppliers, the people that were doing catering are from the township, to say, yes, you have this business in the township, but you can take it global if you want. And the most important thing that we have as a current generation is to say, do not be selfish with your journey. Share it, impact, inspire, so that other people may help you build your legacy over time. Because, yes, it's great to be in the suburbs or in the city and everything else, but it's very important to make sure that you share your stories, because the Bible says we overcome by the word of our testimony. And our testimony is the one that touches and changes people's life, to say, the very same young boy that went to Ditomo Primary School in Vosloorus went to Tuto Lesedi High School and finished his matric in a township. Today, he has showcased in the likes of Paris Fashion Week, New York Fashion Week, London Fashion Week, Brussels Fashion Week, and is currently employing over 48 people on a full-time basis and distributing locally and internationally. And these stories are actually possible, and but only when you recognize the power of humble beginnings.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I don't know. Every time you speak, I'm just like, okay, I don't know what to say afterwards, but no. Yeah, honestly, because I get caught up in what you're saying. You always open my mind in different ways. So David, also just talking about New York Fashion Week, like taking it into global, because obviously in South Africa, you had so much success. You won the L Design and New Designer in 2003, and that's when you had launched David Tlale brand. And I think you then interned with Julian and the boys,
Yeah.
and you asked, this was in 2005, and you asked, oh, when will I start making money? And then he was like, think of 20 years. So now, honestly, for real, if somebody told me I was going to start to be able to make money in 20 years, I'd be like, 20 years in like the speed of light time? 20 years as in God can do it in a split second? Like 20 years is like a day? Or you know what I mean? So for you, like just hearing that you were only going to start making money in 20 years, what was, like, what did you learn from that? And has that been true in terms of the work that you've done? Because you are honestly one of South Africa and Africa's most celebrated, designers. So everybody always has the idea that when you have the House of David Tlale, the David Tlale, there's money coming in, you've got like amazing clientele, which you do have amazing clients, but what's the reality behind it for people who want to go into the fashion business or anything? What is the reality behind the actual building of something that's sustainable?
You know, Lee, the thing is, when Julian said you start making money after 20 years, um, I thought he was just lying. He was just like, ah, he just wants you to give up and just like, okay, this thing is not going to work. And I was like, you know what? I want to sustain until that 20 years and let's see how far we can go. But also I did not pay attention to it. And then I said, okay, fine. We have this journey that we are getting on. Yes, Julian may be the designer during a particular era, but we are current generation. How do we change that? How do we change that mentality? The one thing that really really struck my mind, or that really like hit me hard, was along the journey of building, you have to be patient. You have to have stamina, and you must be consistent. And has it been hard? On a daily basis. Have we struggled? Are we struggling? Continuously. You do not want to know how many times I've always wanted to just like file in for bankruptcy because of the nature of the industry, and also because of um, how economy and people spending money has changed over every other time, every other year. And where I met people say, you're very successful. I'm like, what is success? And the other day I was listening to a very powerful motivational speaker. That success is hard work. When you wake up and work hard every morning, that's success, because you've succeeded from yesterday. Today you continue and do it. Do you ever get satisfied as an entrepreneur? You don't. You just keep wanting to reinvent yourself. You keep wanting to do better on a daily basis. Question is, are we successful today? Yes, we are successful. Because why? We've created jobs, we're feeding families, we are part of a growing industry. We've inspired and keep on inspiring young people along the journey. Money is relative, comes and goes. But question is, when you have the money, do you have the legacy? Do you have the roots that defines you and sets you apart from everyone else? I speak boldly because I look at my journey from 2012 to where we are. We, as a brand, David Tlale, we have run internship programs and have touched and changed people's lives. More or less over 386 designers have gone through this internship program. Where we are sitting today, there's amazing brands that have actually merged from the program called The Intern by David Tlale. We talk about Ntando XV, who's currently working and employing a few people. We talk about Keletso Moraba, who is now a designer. He employs people, showcases at Fashion Week. These people that I'm talking about are already at bigger platforms. Juk Mgati out in Durban, Nogwanda Ngobo in Durban, and we have Cindy Mfabe, who's now our pattern maker, full-time in-house. We have the likes of Musa Maxwell, who has won the World Prize in London. It's an international prize. And there's many others. And as we speak right now, we are currently interning 12 other young designers who are fresh from university, bridging the gap between academics and the business of fashion. And as we turn 20 this year, Lee, I'm super grateful of that stamina. I am super grateful of God's grace upon us with all the good, the bad, and the ugly, the falling down and the rising every day, and the prayers and everything else that we've done throughout the journey to be where we are today. I'm grateful of all those lessons. Whether they were hard, whether they were easy, and the beautiful collaborations that we've had along the journey, they've built us to be who we are today. And we're turning 20 by God's grace, and I believe we are still counting many more years to come. And when I look back on that conversation that I had with Julian, I'm grateful that I had that conversation with him. Because why? It opened my mind to say, actually, there are other people who can be overnight successes. And not talking badly about other brands that have come and gone that we don't even see anymore. But I'm just saying there is a greater reward in anybody that sustains, that maintains, and that keeps running and that keeps rising. Where we are today, I stand and I just like, I wake up every morning, I'm like, God, I'm so grateful that I am able, as the House of David Tlale, to employ so many people, to touch and change so many people's lives. And I always say to my interns, if I die tomorrow or today, I'm cool. The legacy will continue.
Yeah.
Because there are brands that have merged out of the House of David Tlale. And
I love
and
that.
I believe 20 years later, I was talking to the team the other day. I was like, I feel like our journey has just begun. Like literally, after the 8th of November, after the celebration, it's like literally, it's a reset button. Now let's run the race from scratch. But now we don't start with zero. We start with a whole lot of experience for 20 years. The rising, the falling, and everything else. We are now starting to say, okay, fine, let's take this industry with vengeance, and also trusting God for restoration, and also, I mean, just making sure that we represent the kingdom of God in a manner that deserves to be represented in. And for us to be creatives that carry not only our country's flags on our shoulders, but carry the kingdom of God wherever we go.
Amen.
It is very, very important that we do so and show them what God has done and what God is capable of doing. Many people ask me, how have you sustained? How have you made it until this far? It's nothing else but the grace of God. And I believe where we are, God has taught us, God has taken us through, God has sustained us. Sometimes, you know, we speak with my accountant. He's like, David, I don't know how you do it, because sometimes we don't have money to pay people on time. I'm like, just trust God. Watch God make a way out of no way.
Yeah.
And boom, out of nowhere, money comes in.
Something happens.
Something happens. We're able to pay
Yeah.
people on time. And our team, I mean, we have a big team. And there's never a time whereby, there used to be times in the past, like really, really hard times, like, guys, we don't have money for salaries and wages. They're like, I'm like, just take care of me. When we are fine, we'll take care of you. And the people that really love and are called to be part of this journey, they stay with us, and they've maintained with us. And today, we are able to say we are grateful for those people that stayed with us. Is it easy to build an empire like this? It's not, because of why? Of the environment that we grow up in, and we grew up in. But the most amazing thing for me, Lee, is that God has been able to sustain us through it all. And we are standing here today with a vision of still wanting to grow even further, to show the world what God is capable of doing. Many a times we're like, who's your biggest inspiration? I'm like, well, Nelson Mandela is, but I turned out to be my biggest inspiration, because this young boy from Unu, nobody, losing Gomo, like literally being a shepherd and stuff like that, into politics, being a lawyer, 27 years in jail, came back, became a rock star, global rock star. Whether we want to or not, Nelson Mandela was a rock star at the end of it all. And we look at my journey, I was like, this boy from Vosloorus, everybody naming him names, name shaming, and da, coming from being born from a mom who is a woman who's like domestic worker, and today employs over 48 people on a full-time basis, building a global and phenomenal brand. Who else do I want as a motivational role model? Me, myself. And I mean, like, sometimes people think like it's arrogance. I'm like, no, it's not arrogance. Because when you don't stop and look back where you come from, you don't realize how much you have done. And we don't give ourselves enough credit as human beings, because it takes a lot for me to say, I'm waking up, I'm going to do it again. This is after the newspapers have trashed me. This is after the lawyers have wanted to come into my businesses to attach. This is so many other things that have happened along the journey. And it's like, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to do it. And this is the time when I just like look back and I'm like, you know what? God is able to do it. And I'm able to do it. And I'm able to sustain it.
what I love about you saying that you are your own inspiration, it's, you say it in such a way that's so powerful because we literally need to look at where we came from to know where we can go, our
Absolutely.
reference, like we are our best reference point.
Hmm.
So I think that that's so powerful. You mentioned Madiba earlier on. And I remember that you did a fashion show for the celebration of his 92nd birthday, if I'm not mistaken, on the Nelson Mandela Bridge. You had 92 models, and I also remember, well, because I was there with you, the time we'd gone to, what country was it again? To Norway. It was specifically for something around Madiba, so it was a Think Mental Fashion, and his
Yeah,
grandson was involved in that.
yeah.
My question is, because I don't actually know this. In my mind, I was racking my brain. Did you ever actually work directly with Madiba before he passed? Did you have any interaction at all? Because now when I think about it, there were so many parts of your life that were actually like almost like touched by doing work with or about or inspired by Madiba. Did you ever actually get to work with him?
Not directly. I've always been in touch with the foundation, but for me,
Okay.
it has always been like this person has done so much for a country, has done for us
Mm,
as a people,
mm,
and I was like, you don't have to meet him in person, but the works will always follow. Now, today, you think about it, simple
yeah.
thing. So many people have had a one-on-one engagement with Nelson Mandela, but what impact do they have? And also to celebrate or even honor what he actually has done for us as a nation, as a continent, and as the world.
Mm,
And you're talking about one of the major celebrations that we did when he turned 92, when we
yeah.
had 92 models on the Nelson Mandela Bridge. How iconic can that be? That will always go down on
Honestly.
the
Yeah.
on the history books. And then on the 100th year centenary celebration of Nelson Mandela, we had 100 models and continuing the story. And for me, it's all those things that keep on reigniting and reminding us of the work that Nelson Mandela has done for us.
Mm,
Because as much as a country and as a nation, we have so many issues. The most important thing is me and you were able to connect at another level, whether it be spiritual,
yeah.
academic, and also within the industry. It is all due to the work of Nelson Mandela and also the democracy, that journey that we have walked as a country. And whether good, bad, or ugly, we are here because of those people. And at the end of it
Mm,
all, we should forever be grateful and appreciate that journey. Today, me and you, or even our nieces and nephews, are able to go to multiracial schools. Our families, some of them are able to live in suburbs and everything else. In the past, we were not able to do that. I think we tend to focus mostly on the negative, but forgetting the positive. Even the very same things
mm,
that we are currently going through, we don't we don't appreciate it. We don't appreciate where we are.
mm,
We think like, oh,
yeah.
this government is so bad, but forgetting that actually, number one, you're living in a gated community
Yeah.
environment. Who fought for that? You know, if it was not because of those struggles, the fights, people have died, and the sacrifices that even the very likes of Nelson Mandela did, we wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't be in gated
Mm,
communities. We wouldn't be able to own stores in shopping centers as black people. Those things were just like known for other people. But I mean, we're not going to be going back to that. But I'm just saying we should pause, stop, and say, wait, look how far we've come. With all the
yeah.
flaws, with all the mistakes, with everything that has happened, we're not promoting all the negativity, but let's look at the beautiful things that are happening today. The next generation beyond us are going to live a much better life than we are
Mm,
actually living right now. Because right now, wherever we are, as a country and as a nation, we're in a space of transition. And this transition is not easy, is not it's not some of the things that are happening are not acceptable. But guess what? We need to realize that where we come from was the worst times, but where we are, it's good times, because now we are able to even advocate for our own destiny. We are able to advocate
yeah.
for our
I
own
love
children,
that.
for the generations to come, to say, no, do not do it like this, because we are all humans at the end of it all. Take
Mm,
off race, take off academics, take off money and everything else. Fact of the matter, me and you are human. So let us live in a much better environment than anything else.
Yeah. So David, so now let's talk about just the transition from being David Tlale in South Africa and you transitioning to start, having fashion shows internationally. Like you mentioned in the conversation earlier, how you had already done London Fashion Week. You did Paris Fashion Week, New York Fashion Week. I think you're the only African designer, if I'm not mistaken, who's done Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week like quite a few times, on repeat, which is incredible. But first, cracking into it, what did you learn the most about cracking into that industry and cracking into that market for you as an African designer?
I think most importantly is having to understand your story and understanding your craftsmanship and your signature and what you stand for as a brand. And I know this that when we did a showcase around Paris Fashion Week in 2000, I think not 2007, um, under the auspices of African Fashion International, with the leadership of Gavin Raja. It was me, Tula Cindy, Craig Jacobs, and Tabani Mavundla. I learned a lot because I know this for sure. This was my very first introduction to international stage because we did a smaller Yana presentation around Paris Fashion Week. It was not on Paris Fashion Week calendar, but we learned quite a lot during that time. And to me, when I got to Paris, I was like, this is the life that I want. This is the David Tlale I'd love to see. Fast forward, 2009 wins Best Designer in Africa. That gave us opportunity to showcase at Mercedes-Benz New York Fashion Week 2009. You get them, you start seeing the likes of Tyson Beckford, Oluchi, Chanel, Iman, everybody. I'm like, what are we doing here? And then Naomi Campbell comes. I'm like, okay, this is what I want. And did I know what it costs? No, I did not know. Financially, it's very expensive. And then, let alone the finances, now the journey of being accepted to be on schedule. Because most people don't understand that, when you go especially in New York, for you to be part of the calendar at New York Fashion Week, you had to apply through IMG and then to be accepted. And then from being accepted, then what you need to do is create the collection, raise the money, and then be at New York Fashion Week. So the journey was hard. From 2009, after showcasing at Arise during New York Fashion Week, I started applying. And only in 2012, I said to my consul general in New York, I was like, CG, listen, I need to be part of New York Fashion Week. And I've been applying, and these people are not responding. Can you please help me? And it's like, that's our mission here, to open those opportunities. He was like, but before you do that, come and do an exhibition in the embassy premises, and let's see if you mean what you're asking for. I'm like, okay, cool, no problem. Lo and behold, during New York Fashion Week, we were not on calendar. We did a small exhibition in the offices at the Consulate General's office in New York, invited people to come, the media, and it was like, okay, great, Sam, this guy's got something. Then after that, immediately, the Consulate General was like, okay, fine, let's help you get onto New York Fashion Week. Started the journey, set up an appointment for me. I got the appointment. When I got for an interview, this woman that was like interviewing me, she comes in. What does she come in? With all my portfolios over the years of saying, you've been applying, not only you, but there's other people that have been applying with your name on it, to say we want to bring a conglomerate of designers from Africa or South Africa to come and showcase, da 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 da. I'm like, oh wow, so much for trying. And I did that, and long story short, got accepted. I started first by presenting in the box, where models are just like stationary, people move around. And then from there, that I did that for like 3 seasons. On the 4th season, I applied to do runway. That's when I was accepted to do runway. And then I did like 7 seasons without stopping. It was like really, really amazing. And what they taught me is that how we do fashion or Fashion Week in Africa and how the world actually does it, very different. It's night and day.
Okay.
But I learned quite a lot. It taught me that you should be independent. You should have your own funding or sponsorship or even whatever money that you require. Book your own model, have a casting director, have a show producer, have a sponsor for hair and makeup, have the venue, have your production fee, all those things you have to make sure that you have them. And coming back home, it taught me most to say, always be different from what everybody else is doing. And thus, over the years, we've always wanted to do our own standalone shows. Thus, we have shows we've had our first showcase was at the Seka Gallery. Then it was the Nelson Mandela Bridge, at the South African Mint, at the Constitutional Hill, at the Unfinished Bridge in Cape Town, in Bokap, in the streets there. And we've done like really, really amazing productions.
I love it,
and it's been like really, really beautiful. And I think all these things, they help you build a profile in a particular profile. When you say you're going to watch a David Tlale show, I mean, you know this, like there's always this cloud and this buzz around, okay, we are going to actually to a show. And along the journey, you get to perfect your craft. You know that people are just not coming to watch just the drama that you're creating, but they're wanting to see your finishing, your craftsmanship, the fabrics that you're working and using with, and what is your story? What is your narrative at the end of it all? And over the years, I must say that the journey of showcasing in international platforms has like literally helped us to become the brand that we are today. And to be very decisive, to be very focused on our vision and to our messaging, to say, what are we saying? What are we doing? And how do we do it? And more than anything else is to say, when I leave, how do we position an African brand from South Africa to the global market when there is millions of designers everywhere in the world? How do you say, here I am, I'm from South Africa, I produce in South Africa, I manufacture my samples in South Africa and send it to the world? And when you get there, how do you set yourself apart from everyone else? Very interesting that, I mean, an hour before we had our conversation, I was talking to one of my clients / friend from New York. He's like, when I went to visit this friend of mine, he's a designer in New York, like he was telling me the tea about how the other designers are operating. He's like, okay, cool. But the good part is that he's like, I'm coming to South Africa for your 20th anniversary celebration. I'm like, okay, perfect. I'm like, at least people like that, who is my client from the US, will get to see it firsthand, will come to our atelier, see our production processes, see where we print our own fabrications, and see how we do it actually back home. And I think it's exciting times right now for us to start telling these stories to the world, to say, this is how it started, and this is how it's going right now. So, and I think those are really, really beautiful, I would say, stories and also narratives that would change the mindset of the world when the people think about what Africa has to offer or what Africa is actually made of.
Now, just talking about stories and narrative, I'd like to get your view, because there's always this thing with the creative industry. Should they be making commentary on what's going on politically and socially, or should they just keep it nice? Just keep it nice, brew, like, because I say this because you have the range, The Immigrant, which was beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
And for me, although I grew up in South Africa and I obviously have South African citizenship, we've had this conversation before where there are always challenges of being an African in South Africa. Even the whole phrasing seems crazy, but you understand what I mean. When I saw that range and everything, I was like, I really wonder where David's mind was around this. Was it around the way that us Africans are treating each other? What was it around that? Or the fact that we're all immigrants? But I loved it. And I think you printed your own fabrics around it, and all of that. So talk to us about that particular range, The Immigrant, because I do feel that you've had all of these amazing ranges, but that is possibly one of the most statement ranges. Like it tells, like it captures, it's a snapshot in time. It tells you, it's like a history book.
At that moment, I was going through quite a lot because, it was a very challenging time when I conceptualized the collection, whereby there was a lot of xenophobic attacks coming from South Africa and a lot of rumors happening around South Africans. And what really bothered me as an artist as a designer was like, how do people perceive us as South Africans, as just as a normal citizen, not as an artist, not an icon, but as a citizen of South Africa. And what really bothered me is that here we are as a brand made in South Africa, trading in Ghana, trading in Nigeria, trading in Zimbabwe and everywhere else in the world. You leave your country with the stigma that South Africans are xenophobic. And now, how do we now change the narrative of saying, let us change what the status quo of what people think about us. Let us unite the continent. Because that's what we do as artists, whether it be fashion, music, food, anything. That's what we do. We connect through these things. And we have had a lot of these encounters together in different countries. And we see when we start breaking bread with other people, we actually even forget about our differences. We forget about what our politicians or people on the ground are just doing. We're just having a good time. People start enjoying our clothes. People enjoy our food. People enjoy our music. And I'm like, with this collection, what I wanted to do is to bring iconic faces and people that actually played a major role in the making of the beauty of what South Africa is. I mean, from Samora Machel, Graça Machel, Nelson Mandela, Winnie Mandela, you name it. And also collaborated with an amazing artist, Mandla Nkosi, who's a beautiful artist from Zimbabwe, lives in South Africa. And for me, it was like, you look at South Africa and Zimbabwe, the only thing that separates us is one road, like literally. It's just a matter of a road. Like seriously. And a road and a river. And beyond that, we are human, we live together, we interact in many ways in our restaurants, in our homes, we marry them, we date them, we do everything with them. And now let's bring it forth in the arts. And also let's tell the people that we are actually one. And the messaging behind the immigration collection was like, let us stop this xenophobic mentality, because it's all mentality. It's not the real thing. And it's cooked by other people for their own
political reasons.
Political reasons. But we, as the people that are on the ground, we actually love each other. We live with one another. We don't even see that this person is actually not a South African. You don't see me as a South African. You see me as a person that you love and appreciate. I've never seen you as anything else except for Lee, that I love, and I love her craft. And where does xenophobic attacks comes in? You can see that this is a man-made battle. This is a man-made war. Do we need it? We don't need it. We need to fight it. We need to unite the human race. We need to make sure that we can build the continent and make sure that we amplify and advocate for unity and humanity more than anything else.
Yeah. You know, David, what you said is so powerful, and thank you very much for saying that. You know, it's always great when it comes from somebody with such a strong voice like yours. You know, when I think about, for me personally, when I think about xenophobia within South Africa, I know it happens in different parts of the continent in different ways, tribalism, all of that. But specifically, when I think about xenophobia, or when I think about tribalism across the continent in different countries, you know, what we don't realize as Africans is that xenophobia is a result of apartheid. Do you understand what I mean? It's like a legacy of apartheid. So is tribalism a legacy of colonization. So every single time we are not, you know, we don't like somebody who is from another African country because they're from another African country, you literally are making the people who are part of apartheid, you're increasing their legacy. That's all that it is. Because the whole idea was to celebrate. Yeah. You're amplifying it. Every time, you know, we sit in one part of the continent and you're like, you know, say, for example, everybody's like, oh, I don't like Nigerians, I don't like this, you know, or there's tribalism, or the different tribes within countries are going against each other. You literally are doing what it is that the colonialists set out to do. So in that, you are helping the colonizers' legacy to live on.
To
And
live
that's the
on.
message that I don't think, yeah, that's the message that I don't think gets out strong enough. And what has been so beautiful is that the creative and culture industry in Africa has reminded us of who we are as a people. So I'm gonna come to this, to kind of bring this conversation to a wrap. It's so hard because I could literally speak to you for hours. And whenever I see you, David and I are always like, "Oh, don't worry, we'll meet from
We
2
gotta
till
go.
3." 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, we're still talking and we're not finished yet. So I
Don't worry,
really
we're
love
gonna
having
continue
conversations.
next week. Don't worry.
Yeah, definitely. So, just Ghana, because this is one of the places that we've been able to reconnect in the most amazing way.
Yeah.
And I know that you're involved with TAD's Fashion Institute here. The people at that school, the kids at that school, they adore you. There's also, obviously, you're doing a lot here. You're showcasing in Ghana. You've got a great clientele and everything, which is really fantastic. Now, I remember being at a masterclass that you did during Fashion Connect Africa, and you said something about how Africa has always been about high fashion. It's always like people are always making once offs because we have everybody has like a tailor. Like you have a tailor who makes that once off, and I thought to myself, I never really thought about it in that way. We really have always been. And it reminded me of what Vanya said in the interview that I had with her. And she said, as Africans, when it comes to adorning ourselves with jewelry, we were doing it way before anybody else. We
Way
just
before.
never, way before. It was what people were wearing gold, like walking around wearing gold. In terms of the fashion, the textile, and the clothing industry in Africa, and from your work around the continent, which countries would you say are kind of getting it right a bit? And what do you think needs to be done holistically? Like if you were the president of Africa, for lack of a better phrase, and you could implement something that was going to change the direction and of the creative, sorry, the clothing and textile industry in Africa, what would you say that main change should be to be able to make something that's lucrative that people can live off? That you can create jobs. What would your thoughts be around that? And also any highlights from different countries that you feel stand out. Like I know you love Nigeria, Nigeria loves you, Ghana, all of that stuff. You mentioned DRC, which for me, DRC, people from Congo are like, when I think Kinshasa, I just think swag,
Every day.
that's all I think. Every day, every day. Like every time you're around Congolese people, I'm like, is this thing by force? Please, it's a gym.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean,
Yeah.
I think the first thing that I would do if I was president, let me not say the president of the continent. If I would be the president of fashion in the continent, I first of all
Amen.
I would unite the industry and not change of the powerful township or hood economy that is happening. I would rather amplify it because we spoke about something really, really powerful earlier on about the colonizers. Colonizers always say you must regulate. You don't need to regulate Africa. Africa has got it going on. Like you're saying, in Ghana, you'd see like the Ashanti people and the king just like swag gold on a day just to go to the market, like wearing gold
Yes.
because it's normal. Um, all I'm saying is we would amplify those markets and make sure that those people they flourish even better, more than what they're doing, and realize that you are actually the heartbeat of the clothing and textile industry. Let's not regulate it, but let us make sure that you channel it in a way that you become much more profitable. You have bigger spaces to operate. As Africans, we've always had swag. I mean, on a daily basis, without it's no effort. And now
It's no efforts.
it's no effort. It's not like it's no brainer. Because why? We are able to make it ourselves. We are able to put it all together. Simple thing that I'm going to talk about. People say, oh, there's this trend focused people. That is a colonizer's mentality to say, okay, we need to find people that are going to now research what are the next trends for the next season. Like, sit down. Number one, we have Esther Mahlangu, who takes yellow, green, pink, orange, white, blue, red, put it all together and come up with an amazing painting. Who has taught her to do that? Nobody. It's an innate ability that God has granted unto her and anointed her with that creativity to say, do that. And then later on, because now someone has decided there's a trend analyst or research group that are going to find out what is the next big thing. Next big thing is color blocking. Excuse me. We've been color blocking
Wow. Yeah.
without the trend forecasters, without the research. We've been color
We don't
blocking.
need a label.
We don't need a label. Do you understand? So you look at the Ndebeles, you look at the vendors, you look at the Tsongas, you look at the Basutos who do like a simple color, brown and cream white, and make it trendy. Like nobody taught you that. Take blue and yellow, put it together. Amazing. So all I'm saying is, all we'll have to do is to amplify these markets and make sure that people are now able to support each other and just restructure the value chain, ne? To say, you do the fabrics, you do the artworks, you do the processing, you do the manufacturing, and ultimately the whole market actually does get to benefit.
I love
Because
that.
you go to, simple thing, you go to these markets. I love, like you say, I love the continent. I love going to Nigeria, I come to Accra quite often. And you go to the markets. Have you ever sat down and understand the amount of cash that flows on the ground on a daily basis?
Yeah.
And this is why Europeans and Americans feel like if we keep the black man down, just oppressed, we will always win. But they don't realize
Yeah.
the amount of money. The mamas that are selling the fabrics, they're selling the kente, they're selling the fish, they're selling the rice, they're selling how much money they accumulate on a daily basis. So for me, is to say, how do we amplify it? How do we make it greater? And understand the power that we have as an African child.
As you mentioned at the beginning or earlier on in this conversation about how about how you were going to be celebrating 20 years. So you started the House of David Tlale in 2003. Now it's 2023, I believe the 8th of November, it's 20 years.
Yeah.
And you said about how it's going to be a reset. For you, what is your biggest generational dream and hope for the next 20, 40, 60 years of the House of David Tlale?
My dream is to have a global brand that is established beyond, I would say, the current big houses. I always like to do comparison with like the House of Dior, the House of Gucci, Prada, and all. I see the House of David Tlale becoming one of those brands and playing that space. And not only just for fads, but for timelessness. When you look at Amani, how he has built his empire, and also you look at um, how, Carolina Carrera or Dolce has done. This is where I would like to see the brand David Tlale becoming what it becomes. And be one of those brands. I don't want to be the only one. I want to be one of those brands that actually has been able to change the narrative about the African child and the stigma around my beautiful melanin. And to say, for the fact that I'm born in this side of the world, it does not mean I'm disabled, but it means
I love
I'm
it.
capable and I'm very much wealthy because of my heritage, because of my upbringing, because of the diversity that was instilled in me from my childhood. And to say to the world, this brand, David Tlale, is here to stay and also not compete because in the world, there's such a huge cake and everybody can have a slice. And for me, is to say, as a brand that started out from nothing in 2003 to where we are going, I believe we've managed and we're able to build a clientele and a following that will follow us anywhere in the world. And now, as we tap into another dispensation of our journey, and through God's grace of being able to broaden and not only reset, but expand our footprint, expand our territory into the global markets, it is, I believe it's just the right thing to do. And that's what I want to see on a daily basis. And in 5, 10, 15, 20, 100 years to come, I want our children's children to be wearing and not only talking about it, but wearing and also working at the House of David Tlale International.
I love that. Thank you so much, David. We really could have spoken about so many things because, all jokes aside and in all seriousness, you have the journey that you have had, the experiences that you've had, the successes that you've had. I know many people are going to be like, you never asked him about this, you never asked him about that. I really wanted to, to give people a taste of the person of David Tlale, the pleasure that I have to be able to talk to you all the time and the wealth of knowledge that you have. We could have spoken about many things that you've done. The fact that you've now got an honorary doctorate at TUT University. I'm just like, honestly speaking, it's like God has his favorites, and you clearly are one of them. So yeah, we really just look forward to what it is that you do in the future as well. And from a personal perspective, I honestly wish nothing but the absolute best for you. Like,
Thank you.
you're
Thank
one of those
you.
people. It's very hard to find good people when you work in
Thank
the
you.
create when you're in a work kind of place, and I've been blessed enough to find that in you.
Yeah.
Wishing you the best, and thank you so much for being a guest on this episode of the Africa Whisperer.
Thank
Truly,
you, Lee.
I
Thank you
don't
so
I
much.
don't know anybody else who could have filled the spot in the way that you did. Thank you so much, David.
I've done so many cool things, but I've never thought, turn this into a patent, file this, have the NASA legal go through the process of filing this as an actual patent and getting your invention like on paper and disclosure and all of that.